Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, just out on my morning walk. Got a little bit of a later start this morning, but hey, I just wanted to share a little bit with you today. Today is a pretty big day in my life. 20 years ago today, about this time, I was being prepped for surgery to take a golf ball sized tumor out of my chest, and everything that comes along with with having cancer and everything. And I remember but it's been 20 years. I was on a lot of meds that day, but that day is so clear to me in so many ways. I remember just being at peace that morning. I know some of those around me, were worried and concerned and probably filled with a little bit of fear, maybe a lot of fear. But I just remember just being filled with peace. Like, okay, God, this is a bit of a detour, a little bit of a roadblock, a little bit of a hurdle in my life, but I know you got this. And I remember, surgery was the last option that the doctors had for me. All the doctors were like, well, you should do chemo, you should do radiation. Surgery's not a good option because the tumor could break apart, spread throughout your body, and then there's going to be a lot more trouble and issues. But I remember God telling me, I've got plans for you. I don't want you doing chemo. I don't want you doing radiation. I want you doing surgery. Now let me just share, for those going through their own cancer battle, you got to do chemo, you got to do radiation. You follow through with that. If that's what God is telling you to do, you follow through with that. But for me, God said, I don't want you doing those first two options. So surgery was the last option for my medical team. And that morning, that morning is had so many funny moments. Probably not funny to my family and friends, but to me it was, it's kind of funny. I mean, I remember being in the little room waiting to go back to surgery, and I remember, I'm pretty sure, I think it's true that Nathan Oates and Andrew Segree were there praying for me and checking in on Laura and praying for her. And I remember the power going out the whole hospital. Didn't last long, but I remember thinking, man, this is going to be an interesting day. But still, I still had that peace. And I remember as my medical team made their way in, signing your life away with all this paperwork, I would just remember telling each of them, this is going to be the easiest surgery that you've ever done. And I remember some of them smiling, some of them looking at me like I was a bit crazy. But I remember just telling each of them, you've got so many people praying for you right now that only good things can happen in that operating room. And I remember coming out of surgery, and I remember the doctors telling Laura and I that, hey, when Todd comes out, he's going to really be drugged up. So don't really concern yourself with anything that he says. His sentences will probably not be understandable. And I just thought, okay, well, that's no biggie. But I remember coming out of surgery, and I remember I was in the recovery room, and I remember the nurse standing to my right, and I remember looking at her and saying, did they get all of the tumor? I think she might have been a bit shocked that I was that awake. But she called the doctor over, and I asked him the same question. And he said in the 30 plus years he had been doing surgery, that he had never seen a tumor come out so smoothly and encased just in one. Like, he says, I can guarantee you nothing broke away. We got every bit of that tumor that was laying in your chest. And then I remember a little bit later, they had Laura come in, and I remember sharing with Laura and the doctor, hey, during surgery, God gave me a vision, and I'm going to start running marathons and sharing the gospel. The doctor kind of looked at Laura, and she's kind of like, well, he's still on a lot of meds. Really wouldn't pay much attention to that. But about 4 or 5 days later, I brought it up again. Like, man, I can't wait to get healthy and start training for a marathon. And Laura's like, you're really serious? And I said, yeah. I said, God gave me a vision when I was under, that I was going to start sharing the gospel by running marathons. And obviously, I'd been a Christian for a long time at that point, so I had been sharing the gospel. But this was going to be a different way of sharing the gospel. And I remember Laura going, well, when's the last time you ran? And I said, oh, it's been years. She goes, what's the furthest you've ever run? And I said, maybe 5 miles. But I remember God just kept putting that in my mind, and in my heart. And I remember 4 months after being diagnosed with cancer, 4 months after having my chest opened up to take that tumor out, I remember I got clearance to start running. I remember the first night I ran, Laura and I drove up to Flagler Drive in West Palm, right by Family Church downtown, which at that point was still First Baptist of West Palm. And I remember just going out and running. And I remember I did about 1.5 miles that night, and I thought, okay, this is nowhere near a marathon, but it was a start. It was the first step. And 11 months later, it's 11, no, maybe a little bit longer, let's see. Yeah, about 11 months later. No, I'm sorry guys, a little confused there on that date, but I remember it was about a year, maybe 11 months to a year after having surgery, because I had surgery in October of 2003 and ran my first marathon in November of 2004. So, but I remember running that marathon. And Laura and I agreed that I had only run a half marathon, which at the end of that half marathon, I was very, very happy that we had made that decision, because I'm not quite sure I would have made it through a full marathon at that point. But I remember just, running, and I remember having conversations with people, and, what always comes up like, hey, why are you running a marathon? What made you want to run a marathon? And I was able to share what God had done in my life and what he was continuing to do in my life. And then I was blessed, I've been blessed to run over 300 marathons. And I don't say that to like, ooh, look at me, I ran over 300 marathons. No, I say that because I could have only done that with God's help and by embracing the detour, the roadblock, the hurdle that had been placed in front of me even before cancer. Because as most of you know, I got sick with some other health issues in 2002. But it was that moment when God gave me that vision during surgery 20 years ago today, that I embraced that. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to look at this cancer as a negative. I'm going to look at this cancer as, how can I use it to share the love of Jesus with people? And through running and through my writings and through conversations with people and through all the days in the hospital and doctor's appointments and treatments, God has allowed me to share the gospel with thousands of people. Now, I was already sharing the gospel way before I got sick. But the journey, my health journey, allowed me to have a brand new audience that I would have never had I not walked through the journey that I'm still walking through in some ways even today. But it was the choice to embrace those obstacles, to embrace those detours, to turn what the world would look as a negative into what God wanted it to be, a positive, because it gave me a chance to share the love of Jesus with more people, gave me a broader audience than I would have ever had. Now, I always like to clarify so nobody ever misinterprets what I'm saying. I'm not saying that God made me sick. God didn't give me cancer. God didn't give me all the other health issues that I've had to deal with over the years. But He's allowed me to walk through those illnesses. And He's allowed me to share His love, His compassion, His encouragement with others. So I want to encourage each of you today. I don't know what roadblock you're facing today. I don't know what obstacle you're facing today, but I encourage you to embrace the challenges, embrace the detours, embrace the obstacles, embrace the hurdles that are placed in front of you in life. Because when you do that, man, no telling how God is going to use what most people would think is a negative, and how he can turn that into a positive. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying every day of my 21-year journey has been easy. It's not been some tough days. But what's got me through those tough days is obviously my relationship with Jesus, my relationship with my wife, but also having some great people in the boat with me. And we've talked about that. I've talked about that before. And maybe I'll share that again sometime. You get to choose the people that are in your boat. And I encourage you to make sure that the people that are in your boat, that you're doing life with, are there to encourage, there to be honest when they need to be honest. But I pray that you have some amazing people in your boat with you. So hey guys, I took up enough of your time. So I pray everybody has a great day. I pray your day is filled with amazing moments and God's blessings. I'll talk to you later. God bless.